What's up guys, thanks for tuning into the channel. Today I'm testing out the Indian motorcycle Scout Rogue. In 2022, Indian Motorcycles added another Scout variant to their growing Scout lineup. And to be honest, I don't blame them. The Scout is one of Indian's best-selling motorcycles. The Scout Rogue brings much needed functionality without sacrificing the clean lines of the Scout. It comes stock with mini apes and a front fairing and has a 19-inch front wheel. The one common criticism of the Scout Bobber is that it's not a comfortable ride. Low tracker bars and forward controls with an unforgiving seat is a recipe for discomfort in my book. With the addition of some new features on the Scout Rogue, it begs the question, is the Scout Rogue the best Scout in the lineup? Just came off of a Scout Bobber, so the performance and the power and all that stuff feels pretty familiar. There's a few things that are very similar, and then there's a few things that are very different. Similar to the Scout Bobber, this bike has about 100 horsepower and 70 some foot-pounds of torque, which is, you know, pretty fantastic if you ask me. Comes with the forward controls, the little bobber seat, but then where it gets slightly different is the ergonomics. Now it gives you the little mini apes, and it gives you this tiny little, you know, windshield sport fairing, and then also it comes with the skinny 19-inch front tire, so it should be a little bit more nimble, but we'll test it out, see how it goes. Automatically, just coming from the Scout Bobber to this, so you're gonna feel a lot more comfortable. You're more spread out, arms out, you know, feels good. Feels much better than the Scout Bobber. Alright, so the power and performance, you know, feels very similar to the Scout Bobber, pretty much exactly the same. Just very smooth, very friendly, lots of torque on command here. I think Indian has really refined this motor, refined the engine so that it's not too overwhelming. One of the main drawbacks of the Scout Bobber is that it's not a comfortable ride, nor is it meant to be. It's a bobber after all, and it seems like Indian really listened to their customers to offer an option with better ergonomics with the mini apes and a little fairing to help break the wind. These little subtle changes can potentially add up to make a significant difference in ride comfort, and it's a great option for those that want a Scout that can be used in different applications. All right. Yeah, right there, there's just plenty of torque. The engine feels really nice and smooth. You know, the power delivery, I wouldn't say it's linear to me, but it's pretty friendly in terms of how it gives you that access to the power. You can definitely have a lot of fun on this. And the throttle isn't so twitchy where you'll get into trouble. I feel like the power just comes on very gently, but still tons of power on tap. All right, so let's talk about the ergonomics, because I think that's one of the main reasons why they came out with this version versus the Scout Bobber, right? So right now my hands are in a pretty neutral position. I'm coming in at 5'8", and I really like this. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, just because while I like the ergonomics of the Scout Rogue, right, with these little mini apes, I definitely like the looks of the Scout Bobber with that low drag bars and low to the ground mean aesthetic. So the bars kind of throws it off for me on the Scout Rogue, but in terms of comfort wise, I can't complain. If you're picking between this bike versus the Scout Bobber, you really have to just figure out what your priority is. I would say, you know, if this was my main bike, I might go with the Scout Rogue, just because it'll be a little bit more capable bike in terms of distance and comfort. If this was my second bike though, I might go with the Scout Bobber, because presumably the first bike will be a little bit more touring focused, right? At least that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So on my 30-minute demo of the Scout Bobber, I could already tell that my back wasn't going to take much more of that infamous taco riding position. The problem is that a bike that's as much fun as the Scout Bobber, you want to keep riding and having fun, but the fun stops when your back is on fire and you have to pull over to take a break. It also kind of becomes untenable during a group ride, because the group isn't going to pull over every 30 minutes just so you can take a break. And I think that's the problem that the Scout Rogue solves for the most part. Now the other point of difference is just this front skinny tire. You know, I'll wait until we get into some of the more back roads here to test this out, but I've also had some experience between my Sportster Iron 83 and my Sportster 48. So the Iron 83 had the same skinny front tire, and it's very, very easy to get it going. It's very user-friendly, if you will, versus the 48, which, you know, takes a little bit more effort to lean and to negotiate the turns. So I'm expecting the same sort of experience to translate over to the Scout Rogue. Oh yeah, the turns are just very effortless. You can really lean this bike, and with the added taller bars, you can kind of use your body weight as leverage to turn into the corners and whatnot. Yeah, it just feels a little bit lighter and more playful than the Scout Bobber. The Scout Bobber felt very like low to the ground and planted. So it's really going to depend on what kind of riding you want to do on the bike. The 19-inch front tire made the Scout Rogue feel lighter to me and more playful. It required less work on my end to manage the turns and curves, and at the same time it felt really solid on straightaways. I generally like fatter tires because it helps out with absorbing a little bit of the roughness on the road, and that really counts on a low slung bobber, but on the Scout Rogue I think the 19-inch front tire was the right call. Now this little windshield, actually, you know, it's not so bad. It kind of keeps a little bit of the wind off my chest, kind of breaking up that wind a little bit. I like it in the combination of the little mini apes on the Scout Rogue. It's like a little mini Sport Chief. Yeah, I just feel way more comfortable in the corners with the Scout Rogue. It doesn't feel as stressed when you're turning into the corners on the Scout Rogue versus the Scout Bobber. Feels really, really solid in the corners. To me, this bike kind of reminds me of the Iron 1200 a little bit. You know, the Iron 1200 had the mini apes, 1200 cc's. Of course, it's not going to be similar in terms of performance as a Scout because this is liquid cooled, but in terms of ergonomics, I think the 1200 came with mid controls versus the Fords on this, but it is very similar. It is somewhat comparable. Wow, it just turns really well with that 19-inch front wheel. You could probably keep up with a lot of your sport bike buddies on the twisties with this. Yeah, this is a pretty comfortable ride. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Just having the handlebars up and with the forwards, you know, that really does a trick. And I'm sure you can get an aftermarket seat that makes things a little bit more comfortable for you, but so far, you know, this is a very enjoyable ride. With that said, who do I think this bike is for? You know, I think it's good for beginners. I think the power delivery on this bike isn't too menacing or aggressive. I definitely think, you know, it's very suitable for beginner riders who just wants to cruise around on a good looking bike that has some decent performance and can handle the twisties. I would say it also makes for a good second bike too. You know, it's a great around town bike with a 3.3 or 3.4 gallon tank. And it's not going to get you very far, but for around town stuff, it's perfect. So yeah, I think it's great for beginners. I think it's great for advanced riders as well, or maybe an advanced rider who's looking for a smaller bike. You know, maybe you have a touring bike and you're looking for something a little bit smaller. So I think that would suit you really well. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is where I'm going to leave you. Thanks for tuning into the video. I hope this was all helpful for you as you're thinking about, you know, maybe your next bike, next Indian motorcycle. But until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.